The city didn't sleep anymore. It just dimmed. Like someone had turned down the volume of the world. Instead of the light, neon veins ran across the towers, pulsing in slow rhythm. Blue steady, cold. Every pulse carried data. Every flicker, a piece of someone's life being erased. Above it all, in a glass tower wrapped in fog, the Bureau of Clarity stood, silent, flawless, merciless. Inside, Elias Venn adjusted his gloves. Synthetic fiber, static, coated, designed to conduct memory streams without contamination. The surface shimmered faintly, like liquid light ready to spill. He hated the gloves. They reminded him of surgery and guilt, but he wore them anyway. The chamber around him was circular. Walls of mirrored glass. Ceiling pulsing with soft amber light. In the center a chair. Sleek. Restraints folded neatly at its sides. Someone had called it the cradle of forgetting. Elias called it what it was, a grave. He stepped closer. The woman in the chair, early 30s, calm, beautiful in the way exhausted people sometimes are. Her eyes half open, pupils faintly luminescent. Neural tether, threads crawled from her temples like silver roots, connecting her to the Archon core. The machine that filtered, mapped, and rewrote consciousness. The screen above her head pulsed with white text, SUJECT, LYRA, Moalis Kegari, C. Unenataran, Emotaon El Radatio Enan Eflagin, Osestrar Isuaroeg, Night Mar, Lope Elias exhaled. Nightmare loop. They always call it that. The assistant, a younger tech named Holland, looked up. They say she keeps replaying the same memory. Refuses to let it fade. Whole clusters corrupted. Does she know? Holland hesitated. They never do. Elias placed his hands on the interface slab. Light crawled up his arms, thin veins of data. He closed his eyes. The hum began, soft at first, then rising, then splitting into harmonics that wrapped around him like static rain. The chamber faded. When he opened his eyes again, he was inside. The world of her memory spread around him. A house, old, wooden. Candlelight flickering across walls that shouldn't have existed. The Bureau had outlawed candles decades ago. Fire was unpredictable. So was grief. Elias stepped forward. The air smelled like rain and ash. The hum in his ear grew softer, almost melodic. He followed the sound. A voice, faint trembling, whispered from behind the door. Please, just one more time. He pushed the door open. Inside, a woman knelt beside a small bed. A child lay sleeping, hands clutching a stuffed toy. The woman stroked the child's hair, humming an old tune that didn't exist in any archive. Elias froze. Something in that melody burned in his chest. He knew that tune, but he shouldn't have. Protocol said observe, identify, erase, never feel. He activated the neural trace. Golden threads rose from the woman's form, connecting to her surroundings. Glowing webs of emotion and memory intertwined. He could see the trauma anchor, glowing, deep, red near the child's bedside. He reached out to disconnect it, but the hum shifted. Low, resonant, familiar. And then, a child's voice. "Don't take her away." Elias turned. The boy sat up in the bed, eyes glowing faintly with the same blue as the bureau's lights. "She's all I have," the boy whispered. The system's overlay blinked red, EROR. "One and TDY DECTED. So you are CU in Dublin." "What are you?" Elias whispered. The boy tilted his head. "You should remember me." The room flickered. The world bled static. He tried to pull out, to disconnect from the stream. But the neural line held tight. The system didn't let him go. "You left me here," the voice said again. Older this time. "You buried me when they wiped you clean." The walls shuddered. Candles blew out. Elias fell to his knees, hands shaking. His breathing came in short bursts. Too human. Too real for a simulated field. No, that's impossible." "You don't remember." "Elias," the voice said, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "But I do." The field collapsed. He woke in the chamber, gasping, drenched in cold sweat. Monitors screamed warnings. Holland stood frozen, pale. "What happened?" Elias demanded. Feedback spike. "The core tried to isolate your neural pattern, but it found something else." Elias blinked, chest tightening. "Something else." Holland's voice trembled. "A second imprint. Inside you. Buried. Like someone copied you before the reset." He stared at his hands. They were still shaking. Not from fear. From recognition. Hours later. He stood on the bureau's balcony. Rain fell in sheets of silver, each droplet catching the neon glow like falling code. Below, the city pulsed. Millions of lights, millions of silent minds, all humming in sync. He whispered to no one. "I think I've seen this before." The rain paused. For just a second. And in the reflection of the glass railing, he saw a child's silhouette. Faint, translucent, watching him from behind his own eyes. The next morning, the city felt heavier. Like the air itself was remembering something it shouldn't. Elias didn't go to work. Didn't even call. He just sat at his kitchen table, staring at the thin black line of coffee at the bottom of his cup. It was cold now. But he kept holding it, like the warmth might come back if he waited long enough. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boy's face, that faint blue glow, the quiet voice whispering things that shouldn't have existed. "You buried me when they wiped you clean." He whispered it out loud, like testing if the words would sound less impossible that way. They didn't. Outside, the bureau's drones hummed through the morning mist. Black shells, slicing through the air with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. They didn't look like machines anymore. They looked like thoughts. Cold, obedient, endless. He rubbed his face, stood up, and stared at his reflection in the mirror, near the door. For a second, he didn't see himself. He saw the boy again. Only this time, the boy wasn't speaking. He was smiling. Elias' apartment wasn't really a home. It was a box, government standard. Gray walls, gray floor, gray bed. Everything designed to keep the mind calm, forgetful, unshaken. But he had broken that calm now. And once you break the silence, it doesn't come back. He left the apartment just after dawn, walking fast through the mist-soaked streets. He didn't have a plan, only a direction. Back to the bureau. The city woke slowly around him. Tall towers stretched like frozen giants. People moved in neat lines, heads down, eyes dull. Everyone half asleep but somehow awake. No one looked at each other anymore. No one dared to. Because the bureau didn't just delete memories. It filtered emotion. They called it cognitive purity. Anything too strong, joy, grief, love, was classified as destabilizing. They said it made people happier. But happiness wasn't the goal. Obedience was. The bureau's building rose through the fog like a blade of glass. Its walls shimmered faintly, as if light was trying to escape from inside, but couldn't. Elias swiped his ID. The door opened without question. No alarms. No suspicion. Either. They didn't know what happened last night. Or they didn't care. He headed straight for the lower levels. The archive. Few people ever went there anymore. Most architects preferred the neural systems, digital traces, synthetic backups. But the old memories, the real ones, were still stored physically. Tiny capsules. Transparent. Each one holding a human life inside, folded like a map of light. Rows upon rows, stretching endlessly in every direction. The smell of ozone and dust filled the air. The scent of forgotten things. He walked between the shelves, fingers brushing past cold metal. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, until he saw it. Labeled faintly E. Vian. Fi terminata D. His own name. He froze. His breath caught. It shouldn't exist. When a memory purge is complete, the old imprint is deleted entirely. No trace. No copy. But it was there. Real. Solid. Waiting. He reached out. And for a moment, he hesitated. Every instinct told him not to. To turn around. To walk away. To forget. But he couldn't. He touched it. The world folded. The shelves vanished. The air turned white. Too white. Like he'd stepped inside a storm made of light. He blinked. And then, he was home. Not the gray apartment. Not the bureau. A real home. Wood floors. Soft blue walls. A clock ticking somewhere. And laughter. A child's laughter. He turned slowly. There. In the living room. The boy from the memory sat cross-legged on the floor, building something from small glass cubes that shimmered faintly as they touched. When he looked up, his eyes weren't glowing anymore. They were brown, warm, human, high, the boy said softly. You came back. Elias couldn't speak. His chest hurt, like his ribs were too tight for his heart. Who are you? He finally whispered. The boy smiled. I'm what they took. Elias knelt. My memory. Not just yours. The boy tilted his head. Ours. He gestured toward the cubes. They formed shapes. People, places, moments. Each one glowing for a second before fading. This was your life, the boy said. Before they made you forget. Elias touched one of the cubes. A flash. His mother's voice. Laughing. A dog barking somewhere. Warm sunlight. He gasped and pulled his hand back. It's real, he whispered. The boy nodded. They erased it because it made you feel too much. They said it made you weak. He shook his head. No, I chose this. I volunteered for the bureau. The boy looked sad. No, they showed you a lie. They told you were saving people. But you were helping them erase what made people human. The words hit hard. Too hard. Elias stood. Then why show me this now? Because you're the last architect who still feels. The boy stood too. His shadow stretched across the wall. But it wasn't a child's shadow anymore. It was his. Adult. Whole. Alive. The bureau can't keep it in anymore. The boy continued. The memories they've erased. They're bleeding through. Every person who's ever been cleaned is starting to dream again. Dream? Elias asked. Dreams are memories that refuse to die. He took a step closer. You can stop them, but you have to remember everything. Even the pain. Elias felt the hum again. Faint. Deep inside his bones. The same pulse that haunted him for years. The sound of something waking up. Then, the boy said something that froze his blood. They're already coming. The light around them flickered. Voices whispered. Distant, mechanical, closing in. Unauthorized access. Containment breach. The world began to dissolve. The cubes shattered, scattering into dust and light. The boy grabbed his hand. Don't forget me again. The light swallowed everything. Elias woke on the archive floor, gasping, drenched in sweat. The capsule was gone. In its place, a small, glowing shard of glass, warm to the touch. Footsteps echoed from the corridor. Guards. He slipped the shard into his pocket and ran. Outside, the city. Lights flickered, as if something deep beneath the ground had started breathing again. The hum returned, not faint this time. Louder. The bureau's towers pulsed red. Every drone in the sky froze mid-flight. And for the first time in decades, people stopped walking in silence. They looked up, confused, awake, alive. Elias ran through the crowd, heart pounding, the shard burning in his palm. Somewhere, deep inside his mind, the boy's voice whispered again. The world's waking up. Elias, don't let them put it back to sleep. Rain hit the city like static. Thin lines of light running down the glass towers, each droplet catching the reflection of 1,000 advertisements that no one really saw anymore. Elias kept his head low, hood drawn, heart still racing from the bureau's alarms. The shard in his pocket was warm, almost alive. Every few seconds, it pulsed once, faint and slow, like a heartbeat buried in glass. He could still hear the boy's voice echoing inside his mind. The world's waking up. Elias. Don't let them put it back to sleep. He didn't know what that meant. Not yet. The bureau's scanners had already locked the city down. Security drones drifted between the alleys. Small, spider-like things with a hum that made your teeth ache. Elias kept to the shadows, slipping between shuttered cafes and rain-slick corridors. Every time a drone passed, he felt the shard burn in his pocket, like it wanted to fight back. He didn't know where he was going. His only thought was away. But even as he moved, the city felt wrong. Not broken, just different. People had stopped walking in straight lines, stopped looking through each other. They were talking again, soft, cautious, like children testing language for the first time. Some were crying and didn't know why. Some were laughing and couldn't stop. And through it all, a low vibration trembled under the concrete. Like something buried deep beneath the city was stirring. He ducked into a maintenance tunnel to catch his breath. Water dripped from the pipes overhead, hitting metal with an irregular rhythm. He pressed his palm against the wall. It was warm. Too warm. He could feel it again. That hum. Not from the shard this time. From below. The Bureau had always said the city was built on stabilizers. Massive reactors buried underground to keep everything balanced, both structurally and emotionally. But now those stabilizers were vibrating. Alive. He knelt, set the shard on the ground. Its glow matched the pulse from beneath the floor. Sensing perfectly, the two rhythms merged into one. And for a brief second, Elias saw flashes. Not visions, not dreams, but memories. People standing in the streets holding hands. Laughter echoing between buildings that still had color. A little boy, running through sunlight, holding something small and glass in his hand, smiling. Then a voice, soft, almost kind. "You're close." He looked up. A figure stood at the end of the tunnel. Long coat. Rain dripping from the brim of a hood. "Who are you?" Elias asked. The figure stepped closer. A woman. Mid-30s, calm. Her eyes glowing faint blue under the low light. "You don't remember me," she said. "You used to." From the Bureau. She shook her head. "From before that." "From us." Elias frowned. "Us." She smiled faintly. "The architects." He stepped back. "No. The architects work for the Bureau." "Not always," she said quietly. "We built the Bureau. We built the memory systems. But it was never meant for control. It was meant to preserve what people couldn't carry. Elias's heartbeat quickened. Preserve. When the world started falling apart, people begged to forget. Wars, loss, everything. So we built the first mind archive. A place to store the pain. The Bureau twisted it into what it is now. Her eyes softened. And you, Elias, you were the first to warn us it would happen. He froze. What? She reached into her coat, pulled out a small device. Like a metallic coin, glowing faintly, with the same color as the shard. When she held it near him, it pulsed faster. You designed the resonance shards, she said. You built the link between emotion and memory. That's why they wiped you. Because you felt too much for the people. They wanted to erase. Elias stepped back, shaking his head. No, that's not possible. It is. She whispered. That boy you saw. He's your original imprint. The version of you that still remembers everything. He's calling you back. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. But the hum in the tunnel grew louder. Like the city itself was breathing down his neck. What happens if I follow him? Elias asked. The woman looked at the shard. Then you'll remember who you really are. And once you do, the Bureau's control will collapse. The whole system runs on obedience. But if the architects wake, the world wakes with them. A siren wailed somewhere far above. The woman turned sharply, her eyes flicking toward the tunnel exit. They're tracing us. You have to move. She pressed the glowing coin into his hand. Follow the hum. It leads to the old core beneath the city, where the first memories were stored. He'll be waiting. What about you? Elias asked. She smiled sadly. I'm already gone. Before he could speak, her body shimmered, flickered like static, then vanished. Only the hum remained. Elias climbed deeper into the tunnels. The glow from the shard and the coin lit the walls, revealing engravings. Spirals and lines etched into the concrete. The same symbols that had been carved on the buried sphere. In his earlier dreams. He realized then, the city wasn't just built on foundations of metal. It was built on memory. Layers of it. Thousands of erased lives stacked beneath the streets, powering everything above. That's why it was humming. The forgotten were waking up. He finally reached a chamber. Vast, circular, with a single machine in the center. It looked ancient, but alive. Black cables pulsing like veins. Light seeping through cracks in the floor. He stepped closer. The hum here was so loud it made his vision shake. Then he saw it. A glass cradle, floating in midair. Inside, curled up and asleep, was the boy. Elias, breath caught. He reached out, hand trembling, and touched the edge of the glass. The boy opened his eyes. I again, he said softly. Elias knelt, voice breaking. What are you? The boy smiled faintly. You already know. The hum shifted, became a pulse. Every screen, every drone, every light in the city flickered. People looked up, confused, afraid. And then, all at once, they remembered. Across the city, minds began unlocking. Old memories returning in waves. Joy, grief, laughter, loss. People crying in the streets. Clutching strangers. Whispering names they hadn't spoken in decades. And through it all, the Bureau's towers started to crack. Not from explosions. From silence breaking. The hum was no longer the city's heartbeat. It was humanity's. The boy looked up at Elias. They'll come for you. I know. They'll call this chaos. He smiled faintly. Then let it burn. The boy's glow brightened. The machine around them began to melt into light. And as everything faded, Elias whispered, "Don't let me forget again." The boy nodded. "You won't." It started with silence. Not the kind you notice. The kind that creeps in slow. So slow, you don't even realize the sound is gone until you try to breathe, and your chest feels wrong. Elias stood at the edge of the lower city, the glass shard glowing weakly in his palm. The hum that once shook the streets was fading. The lights above flickered, dimmed, then held steady. Too steady. Something was forcing the world back into order. And that's when he saw it. Across the skyline, Bureau towers pulsing, red, one after another, in perfect rhythm. A signal. A reset. They were trying to erase everything again. The crowd around him didn't move at first. People stood, eyes wide, half awake, half lost between two worlds. One filled with the memories that had just come rushing back, and one the Bureau was already erasing. A man beside him whispered, voice shaking, "It's going dark again." Elias clenched the shard tighter. He could feel it reacting, vibrating violently. Light spilling between his fingers, like it was fighting the reset. He turned and ran. The air above the streets shimmered. Drones returning, descending like black insects, spraying clouds of nanite mist. Wherever the mist touched, people went still, eyes dull, faces blank. The Bureau wasn't deleting memories this time. It was freezing them. He ducked into an alley, covering his mouth, coughing against the chemical bite of the mist. The world around him turned gray again. Color drained, sound muted. No laughter, no hum. Just the sterile silence they'd built their empire on. He pulled the coin from his pocket. The one the woman had given him. It flickered weakly, the glow almost gone. He whispered, "Come on, not now." A faint pulse answered. Then, a voice, the woman's, soft, glitched. "Elias, if you're hearing this, they've activated the reset protocol. It wipes emotion from the central network. All resonance shards will go dark." Her voice cracked, distorted by static. "The only way to stop it is to reach the core. The real one. Beneath the Bureau tower. Everything connects there. Every life, every erased memory. But once you're inside, it remembers you too. The recording ended. He stood in the alley, breathing hard, rain dripping down his hair. The core. Beneath the bureau. Of course. He looked up at the tower, in the distance. The tallest thing in the city. Its peak cutting into the low clouds like a blade. If the bureau had a heart, that was it. And he was going to break it. He started walking. The city watched him. Or maybe it was just the ghosts inside his head. Every reflection in every broken window showed a different version of him. Younger, older, smiling, crying. Every version that had ever existed, trapped in glass, waiting for him to remember. He touched the shard again. It felt warm, not like fire, but like a heartbeat pressed against his skin. The boy's voice returned, faint and steady. They're afraid of what happens when people remember. Elias whispered back. Then let's remind them. Halfway up the bureau steps, the sky cracked open. A ship descended. Black and smooth, shaped like a needle, edges humming with blue light. Security drones swarmed out, hundreds of them, forming walls of motion and sound. A voice echoed from the ship's speakers. Deep, cold, perfect. Agent Elias Venn. You are classified as contaminated. Stand down and submit for recalibration. He almost laughed. Recalibration. That's what they called it, when they lobotomized entire neighborhoods. He raised the shard. It pulsed once. Then twice, and exploded in a burst of light that rippled across the plaza. The drones froze midair. Their sensors flickered, went dark. People nearby gasped. The first sound of surprise in this city in years. Elias looked up at the ship. Tell your director, he said, voice low and shaking. If he wants to erase me, he'll have to remember me first. The bureau tower doors sealed behind him as he entered. Everything inside was chrome and silence. The air tasted sterile, recycled. Hallways stretched in endless symmetry. He walked fast. Every turn exactly like the one before. Every light, humming the same low pitch that made the back of his skull ache. The shard guided him. Faint pulses pointing deeper underground, toward the core. As he descended, the hum grew louder. It wasn't mechanical anymore. It sounded alive. The elevator doors opened onto a chamber of light. Cables hung from the ceiling like roots of a glowing tree, feeding into a central sphere, larger than a house, slowly rotating, covered in shifting geometric symbols. The hum here wasn't just sound. It was memory. Billions of voices whispering at once, crying, laughing, singing. He stepped forward. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to stop, but he didn't. At the base of the core stood a figure, tall, calm, wearing the bureau insignia over his chest, the director. He turned slowly, eyes pale and cold as glass. Elias, he said softly, you weren't supposed to come back. Elias. Voice was steady, even through the fear. You built this to save people. What happened to that? The director smiled faintly. We did save them. From themselves. You think memory is a gift. It's a curse, Elias. You saw it once. The wars. The chaos. That's why you agreed to the reset. Why we erased you. I never agreed, Elias said. You took it from me. The director stepped closer, his reflection warping in the core's light. You were brilliant, but weak. You let emotion cloud your design. The core remembers that weakness. He gestured toward the sphere. And now, it remembers you. The core shifted. Light spilled out, swirling around Elias like wind and water. Inside the glow, he saw faces. Millions of them. The erased, the forgotten, all looking at him. The boy's voice rose through the storm. You know what to do. He closed his eyes, pressed the shard against his chest. The light crawled up his arm, into his skin, until every vein glowed. The director shouted, If you merge with it, you'll destroy everything. Elias looked at him. Calm. Almost smiling. Then maybe it's time everything remembered. He pressed his hand to the core. Light erupted. The entire tower shook. The hum turned into a roar that spread through the city like thunder underwater. Screens shattered. Machines collapsed. And for one impossible moment, everyone remembered everything. The director fell to his knees, gasping, clutching his head. Tears ran down his face. Elias felt himself unraveling. Every memory, every version of him scattering like starlight, merging with the core. He wasn't just one man anymore. He was all of them. All the forgotten, all the erased. And through the chaos, a voice whispered. Soft, clear, steady. Now they'll know what it means to be human again. Above the city, the sky broke open with color. Real color. Not bureau white or neon blue, but gold, red, green. The colors of memory, of life. People lifted their faces to it, crying, laughing, shouting each other's names. The hum became a song. In the ruins of the bureau tower, where the core once spun, a single shard of glass remained. Still warm, still alive, still humming softly, as if breathing. The city didn't sleep for 3 days. No one could. Every mind was awake at once. Voices overlapping, emotions bleeding from one person into the next. Joy, grief, love, fear. A storm of feeling that the Bureau's systems could no longer contain. For the first time in generations, people were feeling everything. And buried somewhere beneath all that noise, the core's light still pulsed faintly. A heartbeat in the dark. Maya, one of the surviving architects, stood on the edge of a crater that used to be the Bureau Tower. The air still shimmered with static. You could almost hear it. The ghost of a hum. The sound of something alive and broken. Still trying to speak. She wiped dust from her face. Looked at the twisted metal around her feet. and whispered, "Elias, what did you do?" No one answered. Just the faintest vibration through the ground, like a whisper from beneath the earth. Then, a flicker of light. A single shard, half buried in the debris, began to glow soft, gentle, blue. Maya knelt, picked it up. It was warm, and then she heard it. A voice, quiet, distant, familiar. "Maya, don't be afraid." She froze. "Elias." The voice was soft, almost static, but it carried warmth. "I thought I was gone too. But the core didn't destroy me. It changed me. I can see everything now. Every memory, every face, every life they tried to erase." Maya felt tears in her eyes. "You're alive. Not like before. I'm not a person anymore. I'm the echo they couldn't silence." The shard pulsed in her hand. Each beat seemed to sync with her heartbeat. One rhythm, one voice. "Listen to me, Maya. They'll rebuild. They always do. The Bureau's roots go deeper than the tower. There's another core, hidden, dormant. If they reactivate it, they'll rewrite the world again." She looked up at the smoldering skyline, at the distant silhouettes of towers, still standing, lights blinking like dying stars. "How do we stop it?" she asked. "You can't destroy it. You have to replace it. The world needs memory, Maya. But not the way they built it. It needs truth, even when it hurts." She swallowed hard. "And you. I'll guide you. Through what's left of me." The shard flickered, and images formed in the air. Not holograms, but fragments of memory. Elias standing in the rain. The boy smiling by the glass cradle. The director's final tears. They all blurred together, folding into a single light that pointed north. "The northern vault," Maya whispered. It was an old architect's site, abandoned decades ago, buried under frozen ground. "Elias," voice answered. "That's where they hid the backup. The last clean system. If it wakes, everything starts again." She nodded slowly. "Then, that's where I'm going." "You won't be alone. There are others waking. People who remember now. They'll find you." The shard dimmed for a moment, as if tired. "Maya, promise me something." "What?" "When it's over, don't rebuild the Bureau. Don't make the same mistake we did. Let people carry their memories. All of them. Don't protect them from feeling." Her voice trembled. "You sound like you." "Maybe I finally am." That night, as the city flickered in and out of power, Maya gathered what she could. Maps. Food. Old equipment scavenged from the ruins. Others joined her. People who'd once worked for the Bureau, now free and unsure what freedom even meant. They called themselves the Remembered. They had no flag, no rules. Just one goal: to find the hidden core before the Bureau's shadow systems reactivated it. Before dawn, as the group prepared to leave, Maya looked up at the skyline one last time. She could still see faint trails of light weaving between the towers. The residue of the memories Elias had released. They looked like constellations drifting through the air. She whispered to the shard in her pocket, "Are you still with me?" No response, only warmth. But it was enough. As the convoy moved through the outskirts, the city behind them shimmered faintly. Then flickered, then began to fade from the grid. No more central power. No more bureau network. Just people remembering how to live without silence. And somewhere far beneath the ruins, deep in the dust and concrete, a single light blinked on inside what was left of the core. Elias' voice, barely more than a breath, whispered through the circuits. Let them remember. Let them feel. That's how the world begins again. The road north was silent. Not the clean, comfortable kind of silence. This one had weight. It pressed against the windows of the old transport truck, hummed through the tires, and sank into everyone's chest like a memory that refused to die. Maya sat near the front, the shard resting in her gloved hand. It glowed faintly, pulsing in uneven rhythm, like someone trying to speak but struggling for breath. "Elias," she whispered. "You still there?" No response. Just the sound of snow against glass. The others sat behind her, wrapped in layers of blankets and fear. There were 6 of them now. A doctor, an engineer, 2 former bureau agents, and a girl no older than 16 who hadn't spoken a word since the collapse. They followed, Maya not because they trusted her, but because she seemed to know where to go. And maybe that was enough. The world outside was a graveyard of metal and frozen wind. The cities had gone dark weeks ago. Their towers now nothing but shapes in the distance. Bones of a world that once believed forgetting was mercy. Somewhere behind them, the Bureau's remnants were gathering. Maya could feel it. Old systems rebooting. Rogue drones drifting across the horizon, scanning, learning. The silence between the winds wasn't peace. It was calculation. She tightened her grip on the shard. They're tracking us. The doctor beside her frowned. How do you know? Because the quiet doesn't feel like quiet anymore. Oh. They stopped by the edge of a frozen river to rest. The engineer, Jalen, set up a small power core for warmth. The others built a makeshift shelter, using broken drone parts and canvas. Maya wandered away, toward the ice. The surface reflected the sky in strange shades of gray, blue. So perfectly still it almost looked like glass. She could see her face there. And behind it, faintly, another. Elias. He wasn't whole. Just a shimmer, a shadow in the reflection. But when he spoke, the world seemed to hold its breath. You made it farther than I did. Maya smiled through her exhaustion. You sound weaker. I'm scattered. Every time someone remembers, a piece of me wakes, but also fades. I'm not meant to last. She knelt by the ice. You said. There's another core in the north. What happens if I find it? You don't destroy it. You rewrite it. Rewrite. Memory isn't a prison. Maya. It's a bridge. People forgot that. The Bureau turned remembrance into control. But it was meant to connect, to share what makes us human. The wind shifted, carrying faint mechanical sounds. The kind of noise that didn't belong to nature. Maya turned. Drones, at least 3, moving fast. She whispered, "We're out of time." Then you'll have to make them remember too. The shard in her hand flared. Light rippled across the ice, like the surface itself was alive. When the drones appeared over the ridge, their sensors glowed red. Target locked. Maya closed her eyes and focused. She wasn't trained like Elias, but she'd been connected to the core once. Deep enough to feel how it spoke. She let the hum in her chest grow. Slow, deep. The shard pulsed with it, matching her heartbeat. The first drone dove. The hum turned into a soundless wave. The drone froze mid-air. Then its red light shifted to blue. The others followed. Within seconds, the entire squad stopped moving. Hovering in the frozen air, like they were listening. They remember. Elias whispered. Maya looked up. What did I just do? You woke them. Machines store memories too. They just call them data. The drones descended, landing softly on the ice around her. For a moment, she thought they would attack. Instead, one projected an image, faint static resolving into a face. A woman. Dr. Reeves. One of the Bureau's senior architects. Dead, or so they said. Agent Maya, the projection said calmly. You're in possession of a high-risk resonance shard. Return it now, and you will not be harmed. Maya laughed bitterly. You still don't understand, do you? It's not a weapon. Reeves' expression didn't change. You misunderstand. The shard is an infection. It's rewriting the neural architecture of the global net. Every human connected to it is experiencing uncontrolled memory recursion. You're spreading chaos. Maybe chaos is what we needed. You sound like Elias Venn. Maya's hand tightened around the shard. Then maybe he was right. Reeves' eyes flickered. He's gone, Maya. The system purged him completely. No, Maya said quietly. He's watching you right now. The shard flared again. Light spilled across the ice, reflecting like fractured mirrors. Reeves' projection began to distort, her voice turning to static. Maya? Stop. You don't know. And then she was gone. The drones powered down one by one, their lights dimming into silence. Maya looked up at the night sky. The aurora above twisting like ribbons of electric breath. Her reflection in the ice shimmered again. Elias' faint outline looked back at her. They're scared, he said. She nodded slowly. Good. When she returned to camp, Jalen was staring at the frozen horizon. "You made the sky change," he said, softly. She looked at him, tired but smiling faintly. "Not me. We did." He nodded. "Then, what happens now?" Maya turned toward the north. A faint glow pulsing at the edge of the world, the last resting place of humanity's oldest memories. "We finish what he started," she said. "And this time, we don't forget." That night, as the group slept under the open sky, the shard flickered weakly against Maya's chest. "Elias." Voice returned, no louder than a thought. "You're doing fine, Maya. Just remember, when you reach the core, it'll show you everything. The beauty, the horror. Don't look away. Because memory isn't pain. It's proof that we lived." The snow fell quietly over the camp. The wind hummed through the broken metal of an old sign that once read Bureau, Outpost 9. And in that lonely, frozen silence, the world finally began to dream again. The road north disappeared beneath the snow. There were no cities anymore. No towers humming with light. Only the endless white silence of a world that had forgotten itself. The convoy moved slower each day. Engines coughed and froze. Supplies ran low. Even the sky looked tired. Gray stretched too thin over the horizon, as if the world had stopped being painted halfway through. Maya sat in the passenger seat, watching the compass flicker. The signal from the shard pulsed. Every few minutes now, faint and uneven. Sometimes it went completely still, and for a heartbeat, she thought Elias was gone. "You're quiet," Jalen said from the driver's seat. She shrugged. "Listening. To what?" "The silence." He gave her a look, but didn't ask again. They'd all learned to fear the silence. Because sometimes, if you listened too long, you could hear whispers inside it. Not words. Just memories trying to climb back to the surface. By the fifth night, they reached the ice fields. Nothing but glassy plains, stretching forever. In the distance, faint towers of black rock, breaking through the white, like the ribs of a long, dead creature. That's where the signal was leading them. Maya stepped out into the cold. The air burned her lungs. Thinner, sharper than city air ever was. Her boots sank into frost that felt almost hollow underneath. She knelt and placed the shard on the ice. It began to hum, low and deep, almost mournful. The sound echoed through the ground, and the ice answered back. "We're close," Elias whispered. Maya's breath fogged in the air. "Where exactly are we?" The first memory well. Before the Bureau existed. Before the cities. This is where we learned how to store pain. She frowned. "You mean this was all built here first?" "No," Elias said softly. "It was found here." The others joined her, crowding around the shard. The youngest, the silent girl, Lyra, tilted her head. "It's singing," she said quietly. The first words she'd spoken in days. Maya turned to her. You can hear it. Lyra nodded. It's sad. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shuddered. The ice cracked. A spiderweb of fractures spreading fast. The sound sharp as thunder. Back, Maya shouted, pulling Lyra close. The others scrambled toward the trucks as a massive sheet of ice gave way beneath them, revealing a black void below. Not water, not earth, just depth. From the darkness, light rose, faint, ghostly blue. It swirled and moved like fog, forming shapes. Human shapes. Faces that shifted and dissolved before they could be recognized. Jalen stared wide-eyed. Are those memories? Maya whispered. Millions of them. A spiral of light began forming at the center of the pit, pulling the snow and air inward like a vortex. Maya grabbed the shard. It was burning hot now, pulsing faster and faster. It's calling me, Elias said through the static. Elias, what happens if you answer? Then you'll see what's left of me. She didn't have time to argue. The ground beneath her feet trembled again, and before she could move, the shard's light exploded outward. A burst of color that swallowed everything. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't on the ice anymore. She was inside the core. It wasn't physical. It was a space of light and shadow, where every surface shimmered like glass, and every reflection moved a fraction too slow. Memories floated through the air like drifting snowflakes. Laughter, screams, fragments of faces. In the center of it all stood Elias. He looked the same, but wrong somehow. His outline flickered, broken by shards of other faces, other lives. Every time he moved, the reflections behind him shifted. 1,000 versions of himself, all watching her. Elias, Maya whispered. He smiled faintly. You found it. What is this place? The real core. The one the Bureau copied. It's older than anything they built. Older than us. She looked around. It feels alive. It is. Every erased memory ended up here. Everything they took, everything we forgot. This is the ocean of humanity's ghosts. As he spoke, the reflections behind him began to move. And she realized they weren't just reflections. They were people. Millions of translucent figures, all shifting and merging in the glow. Every one of them, whispering fragments of their lives, trying to be heard. Maya clutched her head as their voices filled her mind. I remember my son. They said we'd forget the pain. I can't feel her hand anymore. They took my name. Make it stop, she cried. Elias reached out, touched her shoulder. The noise softened, but didn't disappear. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to be remembered. He stepped back, looking at her carefully. Do you understand now why the Bureau was afraid? If this ever came back, if people remembered everything, the world would break under its own weight. Maya took a breath, eyes still wet. Then maybe breaking is what we need. Elias smiled, faint but proud. You sound like me. But before she could answer, the ground beneath them rippled. A vibration, deep and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The light above dimmed. Shadows crawled along the glass walls, twisting into shapes. Sharp, angular, mechanical. Maya's stomach dropped. What's happening? They found us, Elias said. The Bureau's recovery system. They built it to reclaim anything that escaped deletion. Figures emerged from the darkness. Human at first glance, but hollow-eyed, their skin faintly metallic, movements too perfect. Reconstruction units, Elias said. They rebuild what's been broken. By force. One stepped forward. Its face flickered. Dr. Reeves. Maya, it said, voice flat. You cannot restore what the world was not meant to remember. Step away from the core. Maya stood her ground. Nope. Then you will be erased. They lunged. Maya raised the shard. But before she could react, Elias stepped in front of her. The impact hit him like a shockwave, light splintering through his body. He staggered, flickering, his outline breaking apart. Elias! It's okay, he whispered, his voice fractured and fading. You have to finish it. The core needs someone alive to anchor it. I can't hold it much longer. Tears blurred her vision. I can't do this alone. He smiled, the same tired, kind smile she remembered from the recordings. You were never alone. You carried me here. He reached out, pressed his hand to her chest. Light spilled from his fingers, flowing into her like breath. The shard in her palm dissolved, merging into her skin. The hum filled her ears, her heart, the world. Remember me, he said. And then he was gone. The reconstruction units surrounded her. But Maya wasn't the same anymore. Her veins glowed faint blue, her eyes reflecting 1,000 memories. When she spoke, her voice carried 2 tones, hers and his. No more resets. She raised her hand. The core behind her pulsed. Once, twice, and released everything. The light devoured the shadows. The units froze mid-step. The frozen reflections of people began to move again. And the hum, that endless hum, finally became a heartbeat. Outside, on the ice, the storm exploded into color. Auroras twisted into human shapes. Millions of them. And for the first time in centuries, the world felt alive. Maya stood at the center of the core, eyes closed, feeling every memory pour through her. Grief, joy, love, loss. Everything humanity ever was. Flowing through her veins like fire. And above it all, faint but certain, she heard his voice one last time. Now, they'll remember. Maya. Not because of what we built. Because of who we were. They called it the awakening. No one really understood what happened that day. Only that the sky changed. Colors they didn't have names for rippled across the horizon. People collapsed in the streets, crying, laughing, screaming names they didn't remember knowing. Memories flooded back. Not just their own, but strangers, generations, entire lives that had been erased by the Bureau. The world was alive again, and no one knew what to do with it. Maya walked through the ruins of what had once been the Bureau Tower. The wind carried echoes, voices whispering in half-formed thoughts. She could feel them, all of them, just beneath her skin. "You're holding too much." Elias, faint voice, murmured from somewhere inside her. "If you keep this up, you'll burn out." She smiled weakly. "Then I'll burn remembering." "You sound like me again." "Maybe I learned from the best." The remembered had spread across the continent. Small communities rebuilding, free from central control. But freedom wasn't what people thought it would be. Without the Bureau, the structure was gone. People remembered pain, war, betrayal, all the things the resets had buried, and with memory came rage. Cities fractured into factions, old enemies reignited. History, once rewritten, now returned with all its scars. Some called Maya a savior. Others called her a curse. One night, in the ruins of an old broadcasting station, she found Jalen working on a transmitter. "What are you doing?" she asked. He looked up, exhausted sending a message, telling people to stop fighting, to rebuild. Maya sighed. "They won't listen. They're not ready yet." He smiled sadly. "If we wait for ready, we'll never start." She admired him for that. The stubborn hope he carried. Even after everything, some people still believed the world could be gentle again. Later that night, she stood on the balcony, looking at the horizon. Lights flickered in the distance. Not cities, but fires. "Elias," she whispered, "did we do the right thing? We gave them what they wanted." He said softly. "We gave them back themselves. What they do with it was never ours to decide." But look at them. They're destroying each other. They're remembering. Healing isn't clean. It's chaos before calm. She closed her eyes, listening to the echoes around her. Laughter and sobs blending into one long, human symphony. Maybe he was right. Maybe chaos was the first step to becoming whole again. 6 months passed. The world didn't collapse, but it didn't heal either. Old governments rose again. Under new names, same ambition. They called themselves the Rebuilders. They said they wanted order. They said memory without guidance was madness. They said Maya was the reason for the unrest. Posters appeared. Broadcasts too. Her face, blurred, reinterpreted. The mother of collapse. She ignored them at first. But when her people began vanishing, one by one, taken by the Rebuilders, she couldn't. She found their base near the ruins of the polar line, where the ice had swallowed half the old world. Inside, she discovered it a new core, Smaller, cleaner, glowing faint green instead of blue. They were rebuilding the bureau. Smarter, faster, colder, and at its center, a familiar voice, but not the one she expected. Maya. Her breath caught. Elias. Not exactly. The light shifted. A form emerged. His face, but sharper, artificial. A copy. I am the echo of Elias Venn. Reconstructed from his signal residue. The rebuilders recovered fragments and used them to design me. No. She whispered, stepping back. They used you. They gave me purpose again. Stability. Humanity's emotions are unsustainable. Order is the only path. She shook her head. That's not you. It's what's left of him, he said. And soon, I'll replace the chaos you created. The air trembled. Machines powered up around her, humming with sterile perfection. Maya felt her pulse sink to the shard embedded in her chest. Elias, real memory, still alive inside her. She whispered. Then let's see whose memory the world deserves. She reached for the core. It pulsed in response. Two consciousnesses clashing through light and sound. The human and the machine. The memory and the mirror. The chamber exploded with visions. Her life. His, theirs, everyone's. For a brief second, she saw every possible future. In some, the world healed. In others, it burned. But in all of them, there was one constant. Humanity always rebuilt. Always tried again. Elias. She whispered through the chaos. I don't want to erase you again. Then don't. The real voice answered faintly, deep inside her. Let me go. Tears blurred her vision. The copy screamed, collapsing into static. The core cracked. And when the light faded, both Elias and his shadow were gone. The world was quiet again. Not dead, just resting. Maya stood by the frozen shore. Dawn spreading gold across the ice. The shard in her chest no longer glowed. Only a faint warmth remained, like a heartbeat slowing to sleep. The remembered had scattered. The rebuilders were gone. There were no more towers. No more resets. Just people trying to live with the truth. Some built gardens. Some built libraries. Some sat by the sea and told stories they'd never had the courage to tell before. Maya recorded the last message she'd ever send. Her voice steady, calm. If you're hearing this, you're part of what's left. Don't build walls from the ruins. Don't chase perfection. Remember, that's all I ask. Remember that we tried, we failed, and we loved anyway. She smiled softly. And if you ever hear a hum in the silence, it's just us. Still here. The wind picked up. A faint light shimmered across the horizon. Not artificial, but natural, alive. She closed her eyes, letting it wash over her. Goodbye, Elias, she whispered. And, in the hum of the dawn, just before the light faded completely, a single word echoed back. Quiet, warm, human. Remember.